Welcome into the Brickyard podcast. We are here to preview this entire week for the NFL. We're going to go over all of the playoff scenarios, give us who are the contenders in the wild card, who are the contenders and pretenders in the playoff push right now. And then we're also going to go over the in-season tournament for the NBA, Shohei Ohtani, his contract, and then, of course, the certified secret most classified top fives in sports right now, the Brickyard's top 5 worst and top 5 best teams. But let's start out about that in-season tournament. You're kind of saying right now, why is everyone being so dramatic about it?
Yeah, so like after the Lakers, so the Lakers won the in-season tournament, right? And we've been avid critics of the in-season tournament so far this year for good reason. It's in the middle of the season. It's in December and the playoffs don't start till April. But credit to the Lakers. They won. They beat the Pacers with Tyrese Halliburton.
And the Pelicans with Zion.
They did beat Zion Williamson, who could be classified as a bust to some people. But they did win. And, you know, all the media heads shortly after were like, what's the importance of the in-season tournament? What does this mean for LeBron's legacy? Well, that's what we're here to answer. What does it mean? In my mind, it's an accolade that you could put with winning the All-Star MVP.
Whoa, really?
I guess. And then you could also put it with, you know, like Mitch Trubisky, right? Someone that everyone heavily loves in the NFL. He did win the Nickelodeon Most Valuable Player, the MVP Mitch Trubisky. I think those two you could probably put in the same breath for the in-season tournament victory.
Yeah, you could definitely put them in the same breath, but I feel like with the in-season tournament, the idea of it is just to have more engagement for the media, and then it's more interesting talking points that you can have throughout the year where the in-season tournament is competitive and the games were entertaining, which I feel like is a plus for the NBA. Then you get to see some of these stars like in bigger games and bigger moments, how they'll react, and it gives LeBron the stage, I guess, because LeBron is an older player and he's not someone who maybe has the attrition to get to the NBA finals this year. Maybe if Anthony Davis is healthy, but he can win something like an NBA season in-season tournament. And then it just creates buzz. It does seem like it brings more revenue to basketball. And then we get to have like, oh, well, LeBron's the first to ever do something. And I don't think it's significant, but I feel like it's a start in a good way for the media to actually create some actual interest, because it's kind of a fun elimination game. And I didn't actually mind any of the games I watched. I thought it was pretty entertaining basketball. So I think it is a win for the NBA, though.
Yeah, I think there's been a lot of good buzz, and I like it because it's like it switches things up, like a long 82 game season, right? Where some of these players, they're going to probably miss 15 games for load management. And I think that being able to have some excitement in the middle of the season, especially when people don't really know exactly what's going on for the first part of it, being able to kind of be engaged, follow your team in, you know, although it's not super important in the grand scheme of things, because ultimately a title is what's going to give them the glory. I still think that it gives some excitement in the middle of the season, right before the All-Star break, that people will get excitement for.
Yeah, exactly. And it does give the players like an extra little bonus here. Like, hey, here's like a little bonus for some of like the players on the Lakers bench there. But overall, I just think the banner situation, everyone's like so dramatic. And it's kind of a testament to what the NBA has become today, where it seems like it is the real housewives of the NBA or the real husbands of the NBA with all of these NBA players. It's like, oh, James Harden wants to be traded again. LeBron complaining about something making the news, or it seems like everyone wants a trade now. It's kind of just dramatic. It's part of what the NBA has become. It's where it's more star focused. So it's kind of like reality TV. Yeah. And you get that kind of outlook. So I feel like the drama around like, oh my God, are the Lakers going to hang a banner? Like when I go see the Weeknd at Staples Arena, is it going to let everyone here know that the Lakers won the in-season tournament? Or it's like, I mean, who cares, to be honest?
Yeah, that's why I'm like, I kind of compare it to like the All-Star MVP or maybe like something lesser to that, because like you're not going to define somebody's legacy with how many in-season tournament titles they have, right?
No.
Like, if this was 10 years older, like, you could have had James Harden be a 3-time in-season tournament champion. And it's like, what does that mean for his legacy? It's like, means he's pretty damn good in the regular season. That's great. That's awesome. Maybe like see Paul George there, whoever it might be. People who haven't really won a title, but they win this year. It's like, it's great when you're in like a short little tournament, how it plays out. It was fun to watch, but like, it's not really super impactful for somebody's legacy, I don't feel. Maybe you see some players step up big, like Tyrese Halliburton, I think, from this in-season tournament's definitely been risen up in the NBA rankings. And it's been great to see, but doesn't really add too much importance to their legacy, I'd say.
Yeah, don't you give LeBron credit for like actually showing up and like showing out and like being a star? Because I feel like even if Jordan was with like the Wizards or something, he would try and like make an effort. And LeBron at his old age, maybe it's because he's not going to win a title, but I think just the fact that he went and gave out the effort is something you can give him credit for, because he's showing like, hey, I know I'm an older player and I know I'm going to play an extra game here, but this is the first time the NBA is doing an in-season tournament. So I'm actually going to show up and be a star in the tournament and then be the first one to ever win it, which in his mind is a great achievement.
I think it's a great achievement, like trying things out. Obviously, they're going to update the in-season tournament accordingly, but I give a lot of credit to him because not only did he win the first in-season tournament, but in the game itself, and then also throughout the entire tournament, he played really good basketball. And he's in season 21, and he's still playing like a star NBA player, which you see other players in year 21 and how they performed, whether it be a Vince Carter, Robert Parrish, whoever it might be. Not the same players by any means. And I think he's probably 80% of what he used to be, which is pretty impressive for him. So give him a lot of credit, playing hard, especially in late November, early December, and winning the title and playing really well.
Yeah, so in-season tournament overall, I feel like it is a good addition. Do I feel like some people take it way too seriously? Yeah, and I think it can be dramatic, but I think that's also part of just the reality of where the NBA is at this point.
Yeah, but it sounds like the city of LA has a lot to rejoice. You got an in-season champion, and he also signed the biggest major league player in the history of the sport, arguably, in Shohei Ohtani. 10 years, $700 million. Insanity. And for people who aren't into baseball, I can kind of try to contextualize it for you. I know you're not a big baseball guy.
Yeah.
That was the first sport for myself that I kind of fell in love with before football. And then football and basketball and it's slightly hockey kind of fell into it later. But for somebody who's an outsider first, like what was your first initial reaction, if any?
I was like, oh my God, $700 million. That's a lot of money. And like, first of all, it's like how much in baseball is guaranteed compared to like the NFL, where it's not necessarily a guaranteed contract. And then just how good is Shohei Ohtani? Because I know he's a pitcher, but he's a really good hitter as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So all the money in the MLB is guaranteed. So he's going to get all $700 million. The difference between the MLB and say like the NFL and the NBA is that they can defer a lot of the money for later. So like 10 years ago, Chris Davis, who was a big hitter for the Orioles, signed a 7-year deal. Did not pan out. One of the worst contracts in the history, but they deferred it out. So they paid like the first 4 years, and then there was about $50 million left, and they deferred it out until he's 53. So he's going to make a shit ton of money. It's almost like an
53. Damn.
He's going to be.
How old is he now?
Right now, he's like late 30s, but he's making $8 million a year until he's in his 50s.
Oh, wow.
So that's kind of the power of baseball contracts. They're all guaranteed, but if it doesn't pan out, they can defer it out for a long time. In fact, the Red Sox, they just recently stopped paying Manny Ramirez. So shows the power of their contracts. So for Shohei, if you're not into baseball, it would be like Patrick Mahomes, right? Great quarterback. If his ability as a quarterback was the same ability of TJ Watt, and you put them together, and on defense, he's getting 20 sacks a season. And on the other side of the ball, he's throwing for 50 touchdowns. That's what Shohei Ohtani is. And in the NBA space, it would be like if you had the scoring ability of Michael Jordan or Kobe Bryant or insert all-time great scorer, and you included the defense of Dennis Rodman, Draymond Green, Dikembe Mutombo, Hakeem Olajuwon. Like,
what if you mix like Jokic and Shaq?
Yes, that
Yeah.
too. You insert the efficiency of Jokic with just the overall dominance of Shaq on the defensive side. So that's the power you get. For his contract, the biggest contract before in baseball was Mike Trout's 14 years, 440 million. And now obviously it's 10 years, 700 million. So that gap between them, about 260 million, is the third highest contract of all time with Alex Rodriguez, which was the biggest contract in sports for a good part of the 2000s. So the best part about this contract for the Dodgers and Shohei is he's only getting paid $2 million annually for those 10 years. So it'd be like if Brady signed or Patrick Mahomes in this case signed a 10-year, 700 million, or we'll say 500 million for 50 million year contract, and he was signed the league minimum for all those 10 years. And then after he's done retiring, they're going to pay him $68 million over the next 10 years following. So it's really a 20-year deal, but he's going to get league minimum so that they can go ahead and sign one of the elite pitchers or one of the elite hitters and really build like a super team. And then when he's done, when he's in his 40s and 50s, he's going to get $68 million annually.
How old is he now?
He's 29.
Okay. 29. Okay.
So his 10 years, he's going to be right around 40 when his contract's actually up. And then they're going to pay him $68 million annually until he's 50.
Okay. Yeah, that seems like a really good deal for the Angels. So they have enough money to compete right now. So like if Deshaun Watson, say, deferred all of his money for the Browns, and then they would still have money to keep that great defense. But now the Browns are in a situation where they're going to be in salary cap hell, which Shohei Ohtani could have been putting him. And then he's like, no, I'll take a discount now so I can go ahead and compete for championships. Because wasn't he like the best player who'd never been to the playoffs?
Yeah, so he's been in the league for about 4 years now. He's won 2 MVPs in the last 3 years. And this past year when he didn't win, he was second. So pretty much been top MVP candidate for the last 3 years. And they haven't made the playoffs. The Dodgers, it's not like in football or in basketball when you have 2 stars, like you're good. It was him and Mike Trout, and they never once made they never once had a winning season, never mind make the playoffs. So it's great for them because they still have like players like Mookie Betts, who was a top 5 player in the league. They have Freddie Freeman. They have all these hitters. They have Clayton Kershaw still. But now they can go out there and sign other players, other stars, and not have to pay Shohei anything. It's kind of like a Brady deal. What Brady was doing in New England and how they kept all those teams around him. It's similar to that, but on a whole nother level.
Okay. And they still have Kershaw on the team too?
They have Kershaw. They have Mookie Betts, unfortunately. And then they have Freddie Freeman. They have all these really great hitters. And now they can go out and sign all these guys without having to pay Shohei really anything.
Yeah, and then because if he couldn't get to the playoffs all those times with Mike Trout, and Mike Trout was a Subway guy, and that's how you know you're a really good athlete is if you have a Subway commercial. So that's kind of surprising they never got to the championship, but it is a testament to how much of a team sport baseball is. Like it's such a chess match as like an outsider because you see like all the in-game pitching adjustments you have to make, and then how you pace them throughout the season. It seems like something that's more of a chess match. So the fact that they'll be able to have that many good players, it'll be like a San Francisco 49ers situation where you have Brock Purdy and then you can just sign all of this talent around him.
Yeah. And now he's actually going to see the playoffs. The Dodgers, I think, have won 100 games the last 3 years. And this last year they won 106.
Yeah.
They lost in the first round, but now he gets to see the playoffs, which is kind of what baseball needs. So I think him in LA is a massive, it's great for them. I feel like if Patrick Mahomes signed with the 49ers on basically a league minimum contract.
And how much less relevant would that make the Chargers?
RIP the Angels, because now they might trade Mike Trout, and they have let him, he's played for 10 years and he hasn't made a playoff appearance once. They have the longest drought in the MLB. So they already were the Chargers of baseball there, and now they're even more because they're only good. Him and Mike Trout, the only good players they have, are now playing for the other team in that same sport.
Would the Red Sox trade for Mike Trout, or they just need pitching?
They probably wouldn't. They're cheap at this point, which is unfortunate.
Yeah, because I know you showed me like a college article too. Like speaking of contracts right now, but they're basically offering Marvin Harrison Jr. more money than like a lot of these great young receivers have made in their NFL career right now. Like he'd be paid more than T. Higgins to stay in college.
Yeah.
Like wasn't it 24 million?
Yeah, so 20 to 25 million for his NIL deal to come back to college next year, and he would get paid half of what his dad made in his entire career in the NFL, and also getting paid more than like T. Higgins, Justin Jefferson, Jalen Waddle, some of these like star wide receivers who haven't been paid yet. You get paid than all of them in all of their career earnings if he went back to college and played at Ohio State.
Okay.
So that's some heavy bargaining power for Marvin Harrison.
Yeah, I think that'll change the whole way the NFL draft works, especially if you see, like we talked about David Tepper last episode and how dysfunctional that organization is. I think that'll be a huge play in the draft now, and it'll be interesting to see how players will be able to leverage themselves maybe into a better situation, especially if quarterbacks start getting paid more than your contract. Either that or it'll lead to running backs, especially getting some negotiating power so they can get some money early on in their career when they take all those hits.
Yeah, and I think that's kind of what the rookie contracts need, especially for running backs. If you're not going to get that second contract with the running back position, then they're going to need to get paid automatically. Same with with Bijan, for example. He could have demanded something where maybe he gets paid 10, 11 million automatically, which I think he is already.
Yeah, and then NFL teams would just have to do it. Do you want them to? Do you not? Especially for quarterbacks.
Yeah, and look at what Bijan's done for the Falcons in the run game. They already had Algier and Patterson, but you put him in the right situation, he's going to be a monster.
Yeah, especially. But we do have the documents, just like the contracts here that were given to Shohei Ohtani and potentially Marvin Harrison Jr. for the top 5 worst teams in the NFL, according to the Brickyard, and the top 5 best teams. So let's go ahead and start out with the bad. Get it over with here.
Okay. First things first, the city of New Jersey is spared. East Rutherford, you have been on this list many times before, but this week there will be no sights of the New York Jets and the New York Giants, aka the East Rutherford Boogers and Gabagools. So the Zach Wilson won a good game against the Texans, had his best game as a pro. And on the other side, the Giants have won 3 straight. I think they've graduated from the bottom 5. I don't know if we'll see them again on this list for the rest of the year. Number 5, I have the Las Vegas Raiders. Why do I have the Las Vegas Raiders? Well, first of all, they've lost the last 4 straight games, and you lost a game 3-0. If you didn't look at the score, you didn't see the teams, you would think you were watching a baseball game. 3-0. That is a Twins and Athletics game. Dare I say it? How do you lose that game when you have Josh Jacobs, who was the leading rusher last year? You have Devontae Adams, one of the best receivers of the last decade. You have Jacoby Myers, solid too. On the other side, you have Max Crosby, monster on the field there. And you lost 3-0. I feel bad for Max Crosby. I feel bad for Spillane. And I feel bad for the Raiders fans because 3-0, that's a tough pill to swallow. Number 5, I have the Raiders. We're going to stay in the AL West. And before I do, I have a little stipend from our Chargers fan. You guys have heard him before. We have him here because Justin Herbert, he's down for the year. They just lost 24-7 to the Broncos. The week before they won, I guess, 6-0 against the Patriots. But I have a quote from our Chargers fan. He goes right here. He says, "The sad part, I might actually die and they will not win a Super Bowl."
Damn.
Yes, I will be a Bolts fan till I die. I've even debated getting a Chargers tattoo on my wrist. But dude, this fucking team, man. Like, I can't be a fan of another team, but holy fuck, I am so drained. It's one thing for the Patriots to be bad there, supposed to be bad. But dude, how are you this bad when you have a franchise quarterback, Justin Herbert, franchise wide receiver, Keenan Allen, franchise defense, Khalil Mack, and you just lose every week due to awful coaching? I don't blame Kellen Moore because he's actually been pretty well. Not true. But dude, Herbert has nobody now. Eckler can't catch a pass. Quentin Johnson was a draft bust. Like, we got to sell the team, man. It's this bad.
Sell it. Jeez.
Also, not to mention Khalil Mack literally leading the league in sacks, carrying the defense. Some things I don't agree there. Kellen Moore has not been doing well. They scored 6 points against the Patriots and 7 against the Broncos. I disagree there. However, I do agree that they should sell the team. I do agree that they should apologize to their fans, or should I say their fan, and our friend here, our poor friend, Devin Gennard. We do love him very much. But this team has been a heartbreaking team all year. Their offense has been anemic, despite the fact that they have stars on that team, despite the fact that they have Khalil Mack. They've been a complete disgrace in the city of Los Angeles with the talent of the in-season tournament champion Lakers, with Shohei Ohtani joining LA. You got to be better than that, and that's why you're number 4 on this list. Number 3, this team did win this week, and usually on my top 5s, I give them a bit of slack. But you shouldn't want to win this game. I have the Patriots at number 3. You beat the Steelers, which you always beat the Steelers. It's like death taxes and beating the Steelers for the Patriots. 10-3 against Mike Tomlin. But why are you wanting to win games? Why do you like? I get that Mike Tomlin is a competitor of yours, and maybe you should be competitive. But at the end of the day, you're trying to get Caleb Williams or Drake May or maybe Marvin Harrison if you really think Bailey Zappe's the guy, because some of Boston media thinks that for some reason. You shouldn't want to win this game. You should have tried to lose that game. Unfortunately, our number 2 team had other plans. Number 2, I have the Pittsburgh Steelers. And now you're thinking, but guys, they're 7-6. They're in the playoffs. This is the weirdest 7-6 team I've ever seen. First of all, you lost to the Cardinals. And you didn't just lose to the Cardinals. You got demolished by the Cardinals. The Birds, a team that started off, 0-8 with Josh Dobbs.
Yep.
And their combined losses to these teams are 6-20, right? The first team ever to lose back-to-back games to teams under 8 games below 500 for a team over 500. They've been outgained in every game except for one, and they have a negative 40-point differential. Their average points and losses is 10 points a game. That's almost to the level of the Patriots and our number 1 spot for that level of bad. Pittsburgh, do us all a favor. Lose out the rest of your games. Give this opportunity for the 6th seed to a team like the Colts, to a team like the Broncos, to a team like the Texans, to a team like, dare I say, the Bills even.
The Bengals.
The Bengals even. Give it to somebody else. Because if you guys make the playoffs, it's going to be not only the worst playoff game of the entire week, but I'm going to be pissed off to see Mitch Trubisky starting another game. And like, it's not even going to come down to a Cody Parkey field goal. They're just going to flat out not score. And it's going to be a complete eyesore, and it's going to be an easy win for whoever they face. Then comes number 1, and they've been number 1 the last several weeks, and I don't see them going anywhere anytime soon. I'm not even going to mention the fact that they don't have their first overall pick. I'm not even going to mention the fact that they don't have good receivers or the fact that their owner is a nutcase. The Panthers, 1-12. And now you're starting to think to yourself, like, where does this team rank on all-time terrible teams? And right now, I mentioned this the last episode, I'll mention it again. This is the 1999 Cleveland Browns, the same team where Art Modell moved them to Baltimore. And then 3 years later, they came back with a new owner. The Cleveland Browns, so exciting. They're back. They have the first overall pick. They have an opportunity to turn their franchise around for a team that the team that moved away ended up winning the Super Bowl the next year. They went out and drafted Tim Couch. Didn't give him any receivers. Didn't give him an offensive line. Didn't give him a good coach. Coach was 5-27 as a coach. And now they're doing the same thing with poor Bryce Young. No offensive line, no weapons. Been sacked the most in the NFL, 48 times already. This man, by the time the season is over, his head will be on a string. Poor Bryce Young. If you can, for the city of Carolina, give him a new opportunity. Bring him to the Titans. Bring him to, maybe it's the Cardinals if they don't want to draft a quarterback and they want to get rid of Kyler. Just get him somewhere else. Anywhere else. Going in Carolina, David Tepper, you should sell the team. You're a horrible owner. The Panthers, you're going to be number 1 on this list for the foreseeable future. At this point, it's almost a certain that you will be the worst team according to the Brickyard, the best, most confidential, most accurate form of entertainment on interwebs.
Wow. Incredible. Yeah, that was amazing. Yeah, I think the Panthers definitely deserve to be the worst team. David Tepper, worst thing he did was the safe hire with Frank Reich, and then at least he had the fortitude to fire him immediately, but it seems like it's so dysfunctional there that people are just like, don't bother with it at all.
No, not at all. But I need some positivity because that list just made me angry in all the ways possible. So we need some positivity. We need the top 5 best teams according to the Brickyard.
Yeah, and we do have the documents here, so there are going to be some teams left off. I cannot put the Chiefs at 5 this year. I can't put them at 5 this week because I don't think that loss, if you can't get 20 points, you lose to the Packers, then you lose to the Bills back-to-back games. Then it's panic time. So I'm not going to put you on the top 5 list. So have to leave the Chiefs out this week. But we do have some teams returning to the top 5. And at 5, I'll start here with the Baltimore Ravens. I left them off this list for a week or two just because I want to see how they would play without Mark Andrews here, because he was a big part of their offense. He was the one who really has that connection with Lamar Jackson. So it's like, where is Lamar going to go with the football when he's in trouble now? Well, they proved that they can win a shootout on all 3 phases of the game, playing complementary football. The offense was competing with the likes of Puka Nacua, Cooper Kupp, and now that really good run game with Kyron Williams. And then they end up getting the victory with special teams there, showing that they are a complete team. And then the offense hummed without Mark Andrews there, really proving that they can step up without him. So at number 5, I have the Baltimore Ravens returning. At number 4, have the Philadelphia Eagles. Philadelphia Eagles have gone through a bit of a rough stretch here. We all know they've been banging the narrative about their schedule. Everyone they played is so hard. They're so tired. Well, you're still a football team, and everyone has to go out there and get up and play every single game. You lost to arguably the top 2 teams in the league, in the Dallas Cowboys and the San Francisco 49ers. So I'm not going to hold that against you, but you do need to get back on track here and finish the season strong, because you control your own destiny. So you can move back up in the ranks if you just take care of who you should here. So at number 4, the Philadelphia Eagles. At number 3, have another interesting team that's returning at number 3. Oh yeah, that's right. They're back in Browntown. The Cleveland Browns are here with Joe Flacco. Now, Myles Garrett, if you remember, had a bit of a sore shoulder. So when they went to LA, he wasn't his normal dominant self. And now they go back to Cleveland at home versus the Jacksonville Jaguars. And then Myles Garrett is back. That defense returned to form a little bit, turning over Trevor Lawrence 3 times on that bad ankle. And then Joe Flacco just went out there, played really good, really solid NFL football. And the Browns, we were like, this team would be so good if they just had someone who could get the ball to Amari Cooper, get the ball to Elijah Moore, get the ball to Njoku, and let them make plays. And DTR was like, I don't know how to get the ball to someone past 5 yards. And then Deshaun Watson was like, oh my God, my shoulder hurts. And then all of a sudden you have a guy who's like, I don't know, I'm 38. I went to the Super Bowl. I've done this before. I'm kind of bored at home right now. So I guess I'll take you guys to the playoffs and pull off some upset victories. And I feel like the Cleveland Browns are in prime position to do that right now with all of those weapons, the way Stefanski runs the system. And then you're like, well, we've had Ben sort of fall off in the playoffs when he was older. We've had Drew Manning later in their career kind of fall off. Joe Flacco's 38. What do you have to say for that? Well, he got there, thankfully, in week 13, 14, 15, later in the season. So he's not going to have that fatigue. He's going to be fresh, and he's going to be focused on one mission, getting a statue built of him outside the Cleveland Browns Stadium as a Baltimore Raven who owned them for years. And then Joe Flacco comes full circle. So I love the Browns at 3. This is a great story. At number 2, a team making their first appearance on the top 5 out of Arlington, Texas, the Dallas Cowboys. Cowboys finally proved they're going to beat Philadelphia. And then we have Micah Parsons on defense, but the real person that stood out on defense on Sunday night was Stephon Gilmore, being able to hang with AJ Brown and tackle him and get him to the ground. So we had Stephon Gilmore there really shutting down AJ Brown, getting him to the ground. Deron Bland, when he wasn't getting cooked, he was also making the tackles upon Devontae Smith. So now I'm like, Gilmore, Bland, that's a good matchup for Devontae Smith and AJ Brown there, with the pass rush of Dallas, Micah Parsons coming right at you. I think this team could be really dangerous. And for me, the difference with Dak this year is he's not turning the ball over, so give him credit there. I was like, Dak was losing them games by pushing it too much, seemingly at the end of games last year, and I think now we know why. Kellen Moore, he's been awful in LA. Now we have a new offensive coordinator, Mike McCarthy, pulling the reins back. First year I get to run my own offense here in Dallas. And then Dak Prescott and CeeDee Lamb has been one of the best connections in the NFL this year. And I think it's up there to the likes of Tyreek Hill, Jamar Chase, and Joe Burrow. At this point, AJ Brown, like CeeDee Lamb, is one of those dudes. He is him. And Brandon Cooks is starting to get involved in the fold. Jake Ferguson is that real missing piece for them at tight end. So I think the Cowboys' only acceptable loss now in the playoffs would be to the San Francisco 49ers, who are the number one team at number one of the Brickyard. So we have the 49ers, Deebo Samuel. We all know the story. Trey Greenlaw. We bring in Chase Young, Nick Bosa, Brock Purdy playing like an absolute machine. I am Brock Purdy. All I do is read defense, process information, and whip the ball down the field to Deebo and get his guys the ball, feed McCaffrey, feed Kittle, and then we all know about Kyle Shanahan, so it's going to be a really good matchup between them and Dallas up here in the playoffs.
I love it. We got the Cowboys finally making the list.
Finally on the list, jumping right to 2.
They were pretenders for so long. We put them in the same class as the Dolphins and other teams that never made the list. But here we are now today. The Dallas Cowboys are now officially on the list, making it to the dance. Our top 5 and bottom 5 teams, according to the Brickyard, and soon to be in the playoffs. We enter week 15. We have the playoff races getting hotter and hotter. AFC, there's 6 teams that are 7-6. On the other side, we have a contested NFC, 6-7, 7-6, as we enter into the last stretch of the NFL season.
Yeah, we do have a hotly contested playoff, so I figured we would kind of go through the teams and then just go through, based off of history, who do you think is a contender and who do you think is a pretender? And then right now, I think we should start with who do we want to see the most drop out of the playoffs right now? And I think starting for me would have to be the Minnesota Vikings. And for you, I think in the AFC, obviously it's the
third worst team, according to the Brickyard, the Pittsburgh Steelers. For obvious reasons. Mitch Trubisky? Really? You want to see a matchup of Mitch Trubisky versus Patrick Mahomes? Or would you rather see Patrick Mahomes against Russell Wilson? Patrick Mahomes against Josh Allen, Patrick Mahomes against Jake Browning, Patrick Mahomes against anybody is better than Patrick Mahomes and Mitch Trubisky. I don't care that he's an MVP. I don't care that he nearly won a playoff game despite Cody Parkey missing a 43-yarder. I don't care. Mitch Trubisky should be playing for the Sea Dragons next year. He should not be in the NFL.
Yeah, no, and I think that's a great point because I think when you look at all of the matchups that would be possible, I think the Browns are going to stay in that playoff position. But with the Steelers, like I'd rather see the Colts take on the Dolphins. I think that could be a good matchup, especially with how the Titans just played them. Colts just beat the Titans on the road in Tennessee. Like that's a good matchup. And then Russell Wilson or Jake Browning and the Bengals, because I think the Bengals still have a lot of talent. Like,
100%.
and I think Jake Browning ran it and he proved he could run that offense. And their offense, you really just have to get the ball in the hands of T. Higgins, Jamar Chase, and Mixon, and they'll make plays for you. And the game seems like it's coming effortlessly to Jake Browning.
Yeah, I agree. Plus, you have that history with, you know, the mayor of Cincinnati trolling Arrowhead. You have the last 2 AFC title games, and although they won't meet in the title game, you still have that rivalry. It's like probably the biggest rivalry in the AFC currently. So it's always going to be, even without Joe Burrow, that's going to be a good game.
Yeah, even without Joe Burrow, it'd be a good game, especially with this year's NFL. Like every team has been vulnerable at some point. Like even the Ravens as the number 1 seed, I'm like, okay, still really good, but you still worry me at the end of games that you're going to blow it. Can I really trust Nelson Aguilar? Can I really trust Zay Flowers at this point yet in his career and Isaiah Likely to show up?
Yeah, I believe in Zay Flowers and I believe in Isaiah Likely, but Nelson Aguilar has a reputation. The reason why he didn't work in Philly, the reason why he didn't work in New England, and the Ravens, like him as a 4, he should be fine. But yeah, you don't feel confident with him. That's for sure.
Yeah, and then Miami still here at the 2 seed, and on Monday night, for me as a contender, they like had to leave that conversation because if you look that bad without Tyreek Hill and the end of game situations on offense, I was like, why are we running screen passes and shallow routes for Tua at the end of the game at a fourth quarter drive when we should be pushing the ball down the field when you need to versus the Titans, and you still had a chance to win the game?
Yeah, very questionable play calls there. I don't think that Mike McDaniels fully trusts Tua because Tua, it's great that he has Tyreek and he has Jalen Waddle, but at the same time, like I just don't think he can elevate his team when it matters. Not necessarily a hater of Tua, but I think it's just the unfortunate truth for them. I think he's going to hold them back when the playoffs come.
Yeah, and then a team like the Chiefs, do you still see them as a number one contender in the AFC, or have you seen enough to believe that they could lose in like the divisional round?
So it's hard for me to bet against Andy Reid and Patrick Mahomes. Something in the air doesn't feel right. I don't know if they make it back to, as Nick Wright would call the Arrowhead Invitational. It's just between the receivers and everything else, Travis Kelce looking a lot older. I don't see it happening, but when the playoffs come, I think they are capable of flipping a switch. I just don't know if I can trust Rashid Rice and especially Kadarius Toney, who the city of Kansas City will have pitchforks out against him come playoff time.
Yeah. Yeah, for me, because like in the AFC right now, if I had to pick three contenders, I would probably go Cleveland, Jacksonville, and Baltimore for like legitimate contenders. For I've seen enough from them this season to believe that they're not gonna just blow the game, and that they're dominant enough to like roll a team like the Colts confidently. Like with for me with the Colts making the playoffs, I've seen them get rolled by too many AFC North teams where they can't really handle a Cleveland or Cincinnati.
Yeah, I would put Baltimore. I think Cleveland's got a lot of interesting players there. And then Jacksonville and Kansas City. I think just experience, I'd put Kansas City. Jacksonville on the outside looking in, just because I know Trevor came back, but I'm still nervous about his injury. I put Kansas City just because they've been there the last half decade now, but I am nervous about them. And that is a list that can change come next week. I think is the last week I can fully put my faith in there. I just know Patrick Mahomes, best quarterback. They got Travis Kelce, they got Andy Reid, and they've even when things look bleak for them, they seem to find a way. And I think they still can. I'm just really nervous right now.
Yeah. Yeah, because right now, it just seems like they're unfocused, and there's been a lot of out of character plays, and it's the same group as last year. So I don't know if Patrick Mahomes is just going to flip a switch and turn it on. But if there's any guy who can, I think it would be Patrick Mahomes. So that's where you'd have to bet on them based on experience, especially once you get to playoff Steve Spagnuolo. And if anything this year in the NFL has like taught us anything as we watch the season, is most of these games are a lot lower scoring than we think. So I think the Chiefs defense could definitely hold down a team like Jacksonville or Cleveland and stop them from scoring.
Yeah, I think if they're going to win, it's going to be because of their defense. And that does play to their offense as well. Because Patrick, he is one of those guys that elevates in the playoffs. You look at his playoff numbers, they're gaudy. So I think he's still going to be able to win a playoff game, depending on who they match up with. If they're facing the Steelers, and I definitely feel confident there. But there is definitely some concern. I don't see them repeating as AFC champions. I feel like this might be the year for the Ravens, honestly. As long as Lamar stays healthy and the receivers stay healthy, this is really his opportunity if he's going to go and grasp it.
Yeah, I would say it could be Lamar's year. It just really feels like Cleveland has to win this year, though. So I think for me, they would be my favorite in the AFC. And then I feel like as far as teams you want to see make it into the playoffs here. So we have like the Steelers, who we think should fall out. I think the Colts will stay there just because of their schedule is a little bit easier. But as far as like Bengals, Broncos, Bills, and Texans, who do you think realistically deserves to make it the most out of any of those teams based on what they've done this season? And then who do you think would be the most competitive for a possible upset?
I give credit to Denver because they really shouldn't be here. But when they've won 6 of the last 7 and their defense has played very well, Russell Wilson has kind of revitalized himself. I think that they could play some upset ball against a team like maybe Jacksonville or Miami. And they can give trouble. I mean, they did beat the Chiefs already, so I give them credit there. I think it'd be them. I think just for the game matchup, I would pick the Bills, but it's more or less just for the high profile names. I think the Broncos deserve it the most, though.
Yeah, I think with what they've done, I think for me personally, the Bengals deserve it the most, especially with everything where they had to transition with a new quarterback in the middle of the season. They've proven coaching wise that they can go there and they've done it before. And then you have that defense who we know is playoff ready, and they've had some great draft picks on that side. And with Lou Anarumo, you feel like they could go out there, compete with a Baltimore, compete with a Kansas City who they've beaten in Arrowhead. So I think with Jake Browning and how he's transitioned, where he went on the road on Monday Night Football, bouncing back after his bad game and then beating the Jaguars and then putting on a clinic at home, I think they would definitely be the most competitive team and deserve to make it the most to that last wildcard spot.
They'd be a dangerous team too.
Like, just get the ball in Jamar's hands. It's that simple.
Yeah, and so like all these other teams, like I don't want to see the Texans just without Tank Dell and Nico Collins banged up.
Yeah.
I don't think that they're a good team. They're an exciting team, but I wouldn't want to see them there just because I don't think it's their year yet. I think that it's a great story what's happened with them, but I don't think they should be in the playoffs yet. Next year will be their year.
Yeah, I think that's fair, especially because I think it'd kind of be a dud in their first game. It'd probably be a blowout. Whereas if you have like Houston versus Kansas City or Miami, Miami probably rolls them. Maybe Houston stays in it and can get some turnovers with Tua. Whereas you have Bengals versus Dolphins, you're like, oh, Bengals are probably going to beat them on the road in Miami.
Well, that's a winning team too, and they can't beat winning teams.
Yeah, exactly.
So yeah, I don't. Of all the AFC like division winners, the Dolphins to me seem the most fraudulent with their defense not playing well, with them only beating losing teams, and their quarterback. Like of those four teams, like who would you rather have? Tua, Lamar, Patrick Mahomes, or Trevor Lawrence? Like there's a clear outlier there, and it's Tua. Tua being like probably middle of the pack in the NFL quarterbacks. So yeah, I think that whoever faces if the Dolphins stay at the 2 seed, that 7th seed has a real opportunity for a big upset.
Oh, definitely. I think we'll find out who Miami is in the next coming weeks here because they play Dallas and Buffalo. And then if they lose both of those games, there's a chance they could miss out on the playoffs if they lose and then Buffalo wins out. I don't think that'll happen, but there's a chance you lose your division and potentially miss the playoffs. You haven't clinched anything yet. So there's still a chance if Tyreek is banged up here that if your offense is going to look that bad where we're only going to score 20 points at home on Monday Night Football versus the Titans, it's like, who are you really as a team without Tyreek?
Yeah. And if Tyreek's going to continue to be hurt, like that team cannot move the ball without him. Even with and their running game was good last week. Like they had some big runs with A-Train and Mozart, and they still couldn't score any points. So they should be very worried right now.
Yeah, I think the Dolphins should definitely be worried. I think the Jaguars, it depends on Trevor's health, but you'd be rematching with Cleveland. That could be a potential advantage. It's just really going to depend on the health of both of those teams. And then I think the Dolphins, we'll find out here in the next coming weeks. They have some tough competition, but Jaguars do have a bit of a schedule break ending the year where they don't play too many tough teams to finish it out.
Can you see a situation? So right now the Jags are the 4th seed. Can you see them jumping the Dolphins? Like the Dolphins right now are 9-4. They have a tough stretch ahead. Can you see them like potentially the AFC East winner falling to the 4th seed?
Yeah, I could see that for sure.
Especially because like whether it's Buffalo or Miami, either of those teams having to face the Browns would be trouble.
Yeah, no, if you're the 4th seed in the AFC, it's not good news if you have Cleveland coming to town.
Nobody wants to face the Browns right now, especially with how good Flacco's been playing.
Yeah, and I think the Browns have a chance to really pick up some steam heading into the playoffs. So I think they're my dark horse team right now. I believe in them. I think they can do it. If it's anyone's year, I think it's going to be Myles Garrett, and we could see a resurgence in that MVP conversation coming down the stretch. But we've covered a lot in the AFC playoff picture and what to expect there. But let's shift gears because we had a pretty positive week here for the NFC playoffs because the Tampa Bay Buccaneers are officially the 4 seed now and are currently matched up with the Philadelphia Eagles here after the Cowboys just beat them. And then we had the unfortunate game where the Vikings scored 3 points, won a game, and it put them ahead of 3 teams that are now 6-7 who all lost this week, who now have the same record as the Falcons and the Saints. And they only scored 3 points. They lost all of their offensive linemen, and they lost Justin Jefferson again. And they're somehow in the playoffs.
Yeah, and I don't see this, like, their next couple of games, they face the Lions twice, they face the Packers, and they face the Bengals. I think it's very possible that they lose out, especially because you lost to the Bears, you scored 10 points, and then you face the Raiders, you scored 3 points. Justin Jefferson banged up again. Like, all 4 of these teams can easily beat you. The Packers game is going to be very interesting, but the Bengals, with how good they've played with Jake Browning, I think you lose that game. The Lions game, you should lose that game. The Packers game, Packers are a better team currently. And then you have the Lions again, where, it's the end of the season, who knows, but they should lose 3 of those 4 games easily.
Yeah, and if you lose 3 of those 4, you probably lose out to the Rams or Seahawks here. So of any of the teams to replace the Vikings, we have the Packers in the fold already. Is the only team you can see going out there competing the Rams right now?
Yeah, I mean, Geno Smith's banged up for the Seahawks. I don't trust them. I definitely don't want the Falcons or the Saints there. I'd rather see the Giants, honestly, if they were to place them. But of those teams, I would definitely take the Rams. Just because you have the experience, you have Sean McVay. Like, we don't want the Vikings there. The Rams, like LA, all that good stuff. Like, they're going to have some good matchups. They're competitive with all these other teams. They're going to be the most competitive.
Yeah, they're definitely going to be the most competitive, especially if Kyron Williams is healthy. You have a run game with Puka Nacua. You have Cooper Kupp there as well. And then you have Sean McVay, who has the playoff experience. And then Aaron Donald can wreck a game on his own. And you never know when he's going to just turn it up another level, especially once you get a taste for the playoffs, because they would probably get to face off against a team like the Lions here, or it'd probably be the Dallas Cowboys, but I think the Rams are familiar enough with the Cowboys and the Lions where if they catch them on the wrong day, they could definitely make their life miserable. But I feel like a good storyline would be Jared Goff versus Matthew Stafford, Sean McVay, Dan Campbell, that trade kind of coming full circle.
Ooh, I didn't even think of that. And the Lions will probably be locked into that 3 seed most likely. I don't think they'll jump the Cowboys. Although maybe.
I don't think so. They play them. If they play them and beat them, they can jump the Cowboys. So yeah, their fate is in their own hands.
Yeah, it's not impossible, but that would be a great matchup. I think they're most likely going to face the Packers. Chances are, if the Vikings fall out, I think the Packers move up there. I think the 3 seed is what to expect for the Lions. So whoever the 6 seed is, whether it be the Vikings, whether it be the Packers or the Rams, I feel like the NFL wants it to be the Rams, though.
Yeah.
You would think, right?
Yeah, the Rams make sense for all of those storylines. Like, you have Matthew Stafford, you have the trade, they trade away Jared Goff, and then for Jared, how satisfying would it be if he can go cook up Sean McVay's team and be like, huh, coach, should have kept me, where you have a game where Matthew Stafford turns out over a lot. But at the same time, the Lions defense hasn't been playing that well. So Cooper Kupp and Puka Nacua could very well get off. And I don't think a playoff upset for the Lions right now, I don't think it's something we should completely discard. And I think it's something that is in play. So especially for the Rams, there's so much just ego-wise on Goff and McVay's side relying on that matchup if it happened.
Plus, if he wins that game, it would be the Lions' first playoff win since the 90s, which would be massive for that franchise. And if the Rams win, it's like, well, they probably already won the trade. But if they, if that was an argument, that settles it with that game at that point, with that Super Bowl already there.
Yeah, it would settle it with that game. And then the Lions would have to win a Super Bowl too. And then that would be the extra edge that the Lions would have. But yeah, I think that would be an interesting matchup. And then right now it has the Bucks and Eagles slated as that matchup. And I think the Eagles can really control their own destiny as long as they just win out and beat the teams in front of them. Their schedule is much easier from here. You get the Giants twice, who the Eagles annihilated them last time they played them. And I think with this, you really have to prove to yourself, okay, it was a tough stretch of games, but we do have to get back on the scoreboard in the win column and then win out with these games and then go out there and get a home playoff game. Because if we start to lose these games towards the end of the season, how much momentum are we losing getting into the playoffs? How are we going to get ourselves revved up for that game where a team like Tampa is going to be hyped out of their minds for that game in Tampa? The cannons are going to be going off there. Like, you're honestly, if you end up falling to the wild card and you don't win out, you're setting yourself up for first round failure.
Yeah, especially with the Bucks team that has already been there already. Todd Bowles was still in that organization when they won the Super Bowl. And then you have a lot of those guys on the defense that have already been there, who've already won the title. And Baker Mayfield's one of those guys who, sure, he might not be the one of these stars that we're going to talk about with, you know, whoever it might be, Jalen Hurts, Dak Prescott, whoever, but he's still a competitor. He's still a gamer, and he has won a playoff game. He beat the Steelers convincingly too. So I think that he's a guy who is definitely capable of a playoff upset, especially in the way this season has played out. Like, this is definitely not off the table.
Yeah, because say that the Giants beat the Eagles in one of those games, but the Cowboys also lose and the Eagles kind of just fall into that wild card spot, and then you're putting yourself in danger of just meandering into the playoffs, where I feel like there could actually be real problems with the offensive coordination right now and defense. Just not necessarily their fault, but you're stepping in for some pretty big shoes. Two guys who are both pretty decent head coaches right now. Shane Steichen definitely a lot better to this point with the Colts. And then you have that as kind of a lapse where the Bucks have more consistency with Todd Bowles. That team's been there and done it before. And if you're just kind of coming into the playoffs where Jalen Hurts is hurt right now and he's not running to get yards like he was in the Super Bowl era, because him running last season was dynamic. And I feel like this season he's been banged up. He looks like he's protecting himself. So if you have a limited Jalen Hurts and you can't run the ball now with D Swift and your run game has fallen off to a point and Dallas Goedert is banged up now, I don't think a Bucks upset is out of the play at all if you fall down to that seed.
Now, let's say hypothetically it's not the Bucks who make it. Let's say it's the Saints or Falcons. Does that change the narrative for you?
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
They haven't been there and they haven't done it before, where the Eagles have. So they're going to beat those teams based off of experience. When it comes down to it and it's close, you're not winning a game with Derek Carr. You're not winning a game with Desmond Ridder. Baker Mayfield, he's won a playoff game. He's upset the Pittsburgh Steelers before. That was the Cleveland Browns' first playoff win in how long?
Oh my God,
like
the 90s.
Like since the 90s. So he's like, hey, I was that dude in Cleveland. I bounced around the league, but we all know how bad the situation in Carolina is now. So I can actually make something. And then Mike Evans, Chris Godwin, and then just the defense on Tampa, I feel like is more dangerous than New Orleans or Atlanta.
Yeah. And then also, like, a lot of the, like, yes, there's still some Saints players in those playoff runs that they had, like Cam Jordan and Marshawn Lattimore, but like that offense, it would be a crime to see the Falcons or the Saints in that playoff game against the Eagles, because the Eagles would destroy them at the end. It would be like 30-10 most likely. Where the Bucks, they can play some upset ball. They're a gritty team. They have grit. Like, I think they could win that game.
Yeah, they definitely could win that game, and I think the Cowboys still are very much in play to fall down to that spot, especially they play the Bills and they play the Dolphins. Maybe they lose one of those games, but the Cowboys, if they win, they're entering the playoffs on an absolute tear. And I feel like they have the most momentum of any team besides San Francisco, but San Francisco is equally on fire right now. And I feel like at this point, they just have more firepower. Like, it's not even fair. Like with McCaffrey.
Oh, yeah.
Like with how much more firepower the San Francisco 49ers have. So do you see the Cowboys coming in on fire and winning out? Or do you think they stumble into the wild card spot?
I think the Cowboys are going to win the division, honestly, because of the fact that they have Dak Prescott playing his best, not turning the ball over. Their defense has been world beaters to this point, and the Eagles look tired. They look banged up. The Cowboys have had their injuries, but at the same time, like, Dak Prescott looks like he's in rhythm. CeeDee Lamb's playing the best football he's played as a pro. And Brandon Cooks is getting involved. Jake Ferguson's coming alive. Tony Pollard's getting it done. Like this Cowboys team, it seems like they're riding their high right now. Whereas the Eagles, it looks like they're tampering down a little bit.
Yeah, it does look like they're tampering down. It looks like they're injured. It looks like they're realizing how taxing it is to make it to a Super Bowl back-to-back years. But I could see them getting healthy and kicking it into another gear because you can't just still win the games in front of you and win your division, very likely so. So I think with that, I think the Eagles still should win the division, but I feel like the Cowboys feel like they have more momentum right now.
Yeah, and I think that I feel more comfortable with the Cowboys win against the Bucs than the Eagles currently.
Yeah, and an easy schedule isn't necessarily a bad thing because then you're not getting beat to hell through the whole regular season. Then you have time to get comfortable, you get confident, and then once you feel confident, you can stomp out really good teams. That's when it comes back. And I think the Cowboys are still, like Micah Parsons was still dumb enough to believe he's like, oh, I don't think if we remet with the 49ers, like tomorrow it'd be the same result. So if he still has like, that's good blind faith almost for Micah Parsons. So he was like, hey, I think it'd be different. So they still have the mindset that it could be different. So maybe they do have the momentum, but I still think it's San Francisco.
I would hope it's different. That game was ugly, and that got ugly really quick. I think it would be different. Whether they win or not, though, that they need to prove that for me because they haven't beaten the 49ers in the past.
Yeah, and I think right now, I think San Francisco is just ahead of the pack. I really do think it is their year this time.
I think so, too. I mean, that addition of Chase Young has added a whole nother layer to that already good defense. And they have a good secondary. They have a good offense. Their offensive line is great. Christian McCaffrey, Mr. Touchdown Machine. Like, this is a year where if they don't make it to the Super Bowl, it's going to be a disappointment for them. Whereas these other teams, like the Cowboys, I think if the Cowboys make it to the NFC title game, that'll be a win for them.
It's a step forward.
Step forward for sure. It's a turning of a new leaf because this Cowboys team, they are constantly either first round exits or they choke in the big moments like we saw last year, like we saw the year before that. And it's been like that for a majority of my history with them. Whereas the 49ers, they've made it to the NFC title game. You know, obviously they had the injuries last year. They've had missed opportunities. If the 49ers don't make it to the Super Bowl this year, it'll be a failure.
Yeah, it'll definitely be a failure this year unless you have a ton of injuries. And I think have to be the injury of like Trent Williams or Fred Warner.
Yeah.
Something like that. But I think other than that, you don't really have an excuse not to make it. And then you need to look at what we need to do because we have so many talented players on this team that there's really no excuse to lose to any team if you're hosting a home playoff game.
Yeah. And I think the NFC is going to run through Levi Stadium.
Yeah, definitely. And I think they're a lock to be the 1 seed. I think they can pretty much roll any other opponent that they have in front of them here.
Yeah, because they're not going to face the Eagles or the Cowboys again. So at that point, like they should be able to beat just about anybody.
Yeah, but the NFC, AFC playoff races both looking really interesting right now. But we also need to look at week 15. How interesting does that look right now? Well, we are about to find out, and it starts on December 14th, and we get the pleasure, the privilege of watching Easton Stick versus Aiden O'Connell. Chargers coming in after a tough loss, and somehow the Raiders are favored at -3, even though they couldn't even score 3 points last week. Who do you like in this game? And do they cover?
I can't promise they cover, but what I can say is that whose offense has played worse? Has it been the Raiders or has it been the Chargers? I'm curious, what's the over-under in this game?
34.
Okay, that sounds fair. I don't know who to pick in this game, but I'm going to go with a team who's been slightly less disappointing. I'm actually going to pick the Raiders in this game. I'm not going to pick whether they cover because I don't even know. Maybe they just score 3 points this game, and maybe the Raiders. I don't know. I don't know exactly who's going to win this game. I do know that Easton Stick is not going to inspire the locker room of an already defeated Chargers locker room and a defeated fan base in the Chargers fan base. But at the end of the day, the Raiders, I think they've played better defensively than the Chargers have. And I think that they should be able to do better against that Chargers team. So give me the Raiders in like a, I don't know, 14-10 game.
Yeah, Raiders 14-10. That makes sense. I'll go Raiders 8-3. The Chargers have only scored 6 and 7 points in their last 2 games. I can't imagine they're going to get too much better with Easton Stick up your butt playing in this game. So I think just the Raiders should be able to get a safety on defense and 2 field goals in this game. And I think they get to 8 points versus 3 for the Chargers. So give me the Raiders in this game because I have to pick someone, because other than that, I can't keep handing out ties every week. That wouldn't be fair.
Hopefully it's just a tie.
And then starting this week on December 16th, it is the first week of no college football. So we have football on Saturday now. So we have the Minnesota Vikings on the road in Cincinnati. Cincinnati Bengals are favored at 3.5 points. Who do you like?
I mean, who can score more than a field goal in this game? I know a team that can. How about we pick the Cincinnati Bengals? Jake Browning, I know he got banged up, but I think he should be good to start in this game. So I'm going to assume that he is playing. And if he is, I'd like the fact that they have Jamar Chase and T. Higgins and a good defense. I take the Bengals to win this game comfortably.
Yeah, I think the Bengals win this game too. I like the Bengals because they have one of the best defensive lines and front sevens in the league right now. And they're going up against a Minnesota Vikings team that's basically calling people off their couches to come in and fill in an offensive line. They were down to their last offensive lineman Sunday, and TJ Hawkinson was about to play offensive line there if anyone else got hurt. So give me the Bengals at home. I think they keep this 3-game winning streak alive and have some more momentum into the playoffs here. So that's why I like the Bengals, and I think they cover at 3.5. And then we have the Pittsburgh Steelers, one of the worst teams in the league, 3rd worst according to the Brickyard podcast, and they just lost at home to the Patriots. They're now going on the road to a frisky 7-6 Indianapolis Colts, and the Colts are favored at 2.5 versus Pittsburgh.
Look, they are the 3rd worst team according to the Brickyard. So I have to go with that logic because I know that our top 5 teams are the most accurate, and I know they are the most accurate form of information on the internet. So if that's the logic I have, then I have to pick the Steelers to lose to the Colts because they got the mustache and they got Michael Pittman and they have a much better defense. Give me the Colts.
Yeah, so I'll take the Colts as well. I expected them to lose in Cincinnati. I thought they were also due for a loss. I think they'll be able to regroup versus the Pittsburgh Steelers team that's reeling right now. And I think I have enough faith in Gardner Minshew. And I honestly think that 2.5 point spread is disrespectful to the Colts because you're basically saying that the Steelers can keep it even with Mitch Trubisky, which is not fair at all. So give me Gardner Minshew over the MVP. And then the 8:15 game on Saturday is going to be the Denver Broncos taking on the Detroit Lions in Detroit. Lions are favorited -5 in this game.
This will be an interesting game. I think the Broncos probably need this game more. However, we have seen the Lions lose and bounce back with a win. So I'm going to go with that same logic. This is I think the Lions are a better team overall. Give me the Lions to win in this game. Although I do think it's going to be a dogfight. I think it's going to be lower scoring. Give me the Lions to prevail, though.
Yeah, I think it'll be a dogfight. And I think important thing to note, Broncos are coming off another road game. I think back-to-back losses have been back-to-back road games have been tough for teams and have usually led to losses here this season. So I think Detroit needing a win, revamping their confidence, and they've come out swinging every time they've lost a game. So Detroit off a loss usually comes out because you don't want to irritate Dan Campbell and have him on your ass week in and week out during practice. So I think the Lions win this game, but I think the Broncos cover the 5-point spread.
Same.
And then we have the Chicago Bears going to Cleveland, taking on the Cleveland now led Browns with Joe Flacco at the helm. And then we have the Bears, Justin Fields playing for a job next year, Matt Eberflus coaching for a job next year versus Cleveland. And the Browns are favorited at -3.5.
I think that's a fair spread. I think there's something in the air in Cleveland, and it might be MGK's coffee shop. We don't know. But I also think it's the magic of Joe Flacco and how good he's played since he came in for him. He can actually throw the football. I like the Bears and how good they played defensively. But give me the Browns. I think the Browns are playing for a lot more, and they want to stay at that 5 seed.
Yeah, Cleveland has been winning a lot. So I think like the city as a whole has, and I think this team feels different with Joe Flacco. I think if he's being efficient, getting rid of the ball quickly, that'll be enough to get it done. I do think the Bears cover though, because their defense has played better over the past few weeks. So I think this will be a good test for the Browns if they can get up for a team like the Bears at home, and a good test for Chicago to see how far along have they really come since they've started to kind of metaphorically get back on the tracks here. So I think it's like a 24-21 type of game here, maybe 20-17, but I'll take the Browns. And then we have another big test this week. You want to talk about a potential playoff matchup or two teams that are going to make the playoffs and want to see how far along they've come this season. We have the Tampa Bay Buccaneers going to Green Bay to take on the Packers. The Packers are currently favorited at -3.5. Tampa Bay Buccaneers coming off a big divisional win, potentially could fall back out of that number 1 spot. And then Green Bay Packers want to get back on and continue the race in the wild card. So huge game for both teams.
Yeah, huge game. Could go either way. I'm going to lean the Packers in this game. I think that they had some missed opportunities in that Giants game. If their kicker can make a field goal, then they win that game. Jordan Love's been making some beautiful throws. So I'll lean the Packers here. Very young team. They had some mistakes. Had they gone their way, they win that game. I'll take the Packers to win. Although it being very close, I'll say like 20-19.
20-19. Yeah, I think that's fair. I think that's a pretty much expected score from the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, especially on the road. I'll go with Green Bay in this game. I think they need to get back on track. And I think at home, they definitely have the advantage versus a team that thrives in a dome or plays in Florida. So I think outside in Green Bay isn't really going to be Tampa's day. So I think the Packers win roughly 24-21 and then cover the spread.
Okay.
And then we have Chiefs, Patriots. Chiefs are favored at 9.5 points on the road in New England. Do I even need to say any more?
Patrick Mahomes and Andy Reid off of a loss. Patriots trying to lose. Come on. What is there to talk about?
Yeah, I think the Chiefs have to win this game. Do you think the spread is way too big, or?
I think it's appropriate. There's a chance the Patriots cover the spread. I think the Patriots will cover. I do.
Yeah.
I think it's be like 20-14, but overall, the Chiefs have to win this game. If they lose this game, they're going to get bullied next week.
I think -9.5 is too big, especially for a Patriots team that's been playing really well on defense against a struggling Chiefs offense, especially going on the road to New England, I think is always tough. So I'll take the Chiefs, but Patriots cover the spread here. And then we have Atlanta in Carolina. Atlanta's favorite, I guess, at 3 points.
Hey, you know what? I said this last week. I'll say it again. Carolina, if you want to win one more game, beat the Saints or the Falcons. You're familiar with these teams. Here's your chance. That's all I'll say.
Yep.
Falcons should win, but Panthers, if you want to win another game, here's your chance. Here's an opportunity for you.
Yeah, it has to be against one of these two teams. I guess I'll take the Falcons because they could potentially go back into the division lead there. And then, yeah, they'll cover at 3 points. That should be easy enough against a team as bad as the Panthers.
Yeah.
And then we have Tommy DeVito, the Giants, whatever they're cooking up there. They have the results. They have the respect. And they're taking that respect to New Orleans to take on the Saints. But the Saints are favored at 6 points at home versus the Giants and Tommy DeVito. You want to give him more respect than that 6-point spread?
Oh, that spread. It's despicable.
It's disrespectful.
It's despicable. He spit in my mama's face. I'm taking the Giants in this game. I like what they've done. They've won 3 straight games. I think they're riding high. They're loving Danny DeVito, or should I say Thomas and DeVito. So I'm going to pick the Giants in this game. Let's get the Saints out of the playoffs. Hell, throw out Jameis for all I care. Give me the Giants to win their 4th straight game.
4th straight game, Tommy DeVito. Yeah, I like that. And I think that spread is disrespect because the Giants will win this game or at least make it a 1-score game here. And then the Jets on the road taking on Miami. Dolphins are favored at 9 points here. Zach Wilson playing like his job doesn't even depend on it because they already benched him. So what does it matter? He's taking his gunslinging arm to Miami. Do you think the Jets have a chance, or do you think Miami covers?
Look, if Zach Wilson can play as good as he did last week, like he played against a tough Texans defense is a hell of a lot tougher than that cupcake defense they call in Miami. So there is a chance, and I do smell an upset, and I'm going to pick the Jets to win this game because their defense can shut down that offense. If they can contain, or if there's a hobbled Tyreek Hill, I think that hurts their offense a lot. And if Zach Wilson can avoid the turnovers, I'm going to pick the Jets to win this game.
Yeah, I just feel right now Jets should win this game, especially if Tyreek Hill is hobbled. That's advantage Sauce Gardner. And the last game was kind of in the middle of that Zach Wilson debacle. And Miami's defense has underperformed here. There's cracks in the armors. And I think the Jets defense morale has to be boosted, especially after seeing Zach Wilson have a really good game. So I think they'll definitely cover the spread here. I think Miami should win this game, but Jets upset definitely in play.
Absolutely.
And then the Houston Texans, after kind of getting embarrassed in New York and East Rutherford, New Jersey, taking their talents to Tennessee, facing off against the mayonnaise Tennessee man himself, Will Levis, coming off a signature win, dare I say, on Monday Night Football. Titans are favored at 2.5 versus the Texans.
And this is in Tennessee?
Yep.
I'm going to pay some respect to the Titans here because they really impressed me with this game against the Dolphins here. I think they're starting to get some rhythm with D-Hop and Mayonnaise Boy. So I'm going to take Will Levis to beat the Texans, and Texans most likely falling out of the playoff race after this, losing Tank Dell, losing Nico Collins, really hurting that team.
Yeah, I think the Mayo Master has a lot of confidence right now, and he'll be able to carry that into this game right now versus the Houston Texans. So I think, especially with how their defense played versus Miami, if you can go on the road and do that to Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle, I think without Tank Dell, Nico Collins being banged up, and then being able to contain a sometimes limited run game in Houston, I think it's going to be 2 tough losses for the Texans, but they've played well during the season. They've showed themselves as tough competitors, so I think they've earned enough respect this season, but the Titans get the victory at home, cover the spread at 2.5.
Okay.
And then we have the San Francisco 49ers as 14-point favorites in Glendale, Arizona. No?
We already know. 49ers cover. The Cardinals get annihilated. There's 2 teams that Kyler does not beat, the Niners and the Rams. And who are they facing? The Niners. Give me them to cover.
You know, for a guy you paid $260 million, I feel like it'd be important to prove that he could beat the 2 best teams in his division, who he's supposed to be paid to, beat in his own division.
That would be cool. That's an important feature of a franchise guy. But yeah, I mean, we don't even go over that game. Come on now. 49ers win.
49ers win. And then Commanders on the road in LA versus the Rams. The Rams are 7-point favorites here.
As they should be. I mean, Commanders suck. Sam Howell has regressed. And the Rams should have won last week. So give me the Rams to win. They're fighting for a playoff spot. Commanders are fighting for a draft pick. So.
Yeah, Commanders fighting for a draft pick here. And then I think the Rams definitely win. They're on the playoff push right now. Their offense is starting to kick into high gear with Kyron Williams, Cooper Kupp, and Puka Nacua. You have a legit trio there, and I think Puka Nacua has only turned it up as the season has gone on, and he's looking explosive. So I think the Rams turn it up another notch versus the Commanders, get a win there, hang in the wild card race, and then we move to Dallas in Buffalo. The Bills are really in win now mode. They have to win most of their games or they're going to miss the playoffs, and they're 2.5-point favorites at home versus Dallas.
So I think there's something there. So the Cowboys just had a big win against the Eagles, right? And they're playing their best football. I think the Bills, they just beat the Chiefs, but it wasn't quite the same kind of game for them. I can see the Cowboys coming back a little bit flat against the Bills, especially coming off of the high of beating their division rival. I'll pick the Bills in this game to beat the Cowboys. I think it's going to be a dogfight, but I think Josh Allen does prevail, although I do think he throws his interception in 10th consecutive game. But give me the Bills here. They move up in that wild card race, and the Cowboys fall.
Yeah, I think it's interesting because the Cowboys did face Philadelphia, and that was kind of their foe they needed to beat. And then San Francisco wanted to prove they could stomp out Dallas, and then San Francisco kind of had a slump after they beat the Cowboys so badly. So I could definitely see the Cowboys being hung over. But with that said, Buffalo hasn't shown enough for how dominant Dallas has been, where Dallas would have to take a major step back from the football that they've been playing right now. And it seemed effortless to dismantle the Eagles at home, to say that they're going to take a massive step back, forget everything they just did versus the Philadelphia Eagles, and then Buffalo, with how much they've underachieved this year, barely beating Kansas City in Kansas City by 20 and then they couldn't stop scoring. So I think the Cowboys defense can shut down Buffalo and they'll win this game and then cover the spread here. I think they can win by like 5 to 4 points here.
What's the spread?
2.5.
Okay. I'll take the Bills to cover, but I think it'll be a close game.
Yeah, I definitely think it'll be close, especially because the Cowboys are on the road, but I think this will be a good test for both teams.
Absolutely.
And then we have the Ravens on the road in Jacksonville, 3.5 point favorites versus the Jacksonville Jaguars. Still, Trevor Lawrence recovering from that injury on Monday Night Football.
I think the Ravens are due for a loss in this game. They are currently the 1 seed, and they have a 1-game lead over the Dolphins. I do think that the Jags are playing for more right now, although obviously they're playing for seeding at this point. I think both of which are locked in. I do pick the Jags to win this game. So Ravens 10-3. I think they had an opportunity to lose this past week. Give me the Jags to win this game.
Yeah, I'll take the Jags to win this game as well. I think with Kyle Hamilton being banged up in that game versus the Rams and Jacksonville losing 2 games in a row, but Trevor was able to come back, still threw 3 touchdowns without Christian Kirk there. And then they're able to get Evan Ingram going a little bit, able to get Calvin Ridley going. And then with Travis Etienne, I think this will be a really good test for Baltimore, but on the road at home in a must-win situation for the Jaguars, I think this will be a really good game for them to rebound. I think it'll be close here, but the Jaguars were able to edge them out at the end this time. So I'll go Doug Peterson over John Harbaugh in this game. And then I think the Jags cover because I think it'll be 3.5. I think it'd be a field goal game.
Yeah, I agree.
And then we have Philadelphia. They get an extra day of rest this week. They play on Monday Night Football, and they're going up against the Seattle Seahawks, who have now lost 3 games in a row.
Nick Sirianni and Jalen Hurts after a loss. I like the Eagles here. I think that, they kind of got smacked around by the Cowboys, but at the same time on the Seahawks side, I don't know who can contain A.J. Brown or Devontae Smith right now with how inconsistent their team has been. And they're rolling out Drew Lock. So give me the Eagles here.
Yeah, I'll take the Eagles as well, especially with the Seahawks. They've been reeling just as much as Philadelphia. And you want to talk about the perfect gift off of coming off a brutal stretch here where you face all of these heavyweight Titans and then it all comes to a head on Sunday Night Football. You get an extra day of rest and then you get to face off against not only a team that is reeling and has lost 3 games, but Geno Smith struggling with an injury right now. And then you have Drew Lock, who's starting, but Devon Witherspoon just got injured last week. So he was a corner who is now banged up. So that's a situation where Dallas was pretty much able to cook them with CeeDee Lamb. So I think A.J. Brown has a bounce back game. Philadelphia is able to get some mojo going on offense, and that could be some momentum that can re-spark them to go ahead and then beat the Giants twice to finish off the year. So I think this is the perfect matchup for Philadelphia off of that brutal schedule.
I agree.
And then do you think Seattle covers?
What's the spread?
4?
No, I think the Eagles win and like a touchdown.
Yeah, I think the Eagles can win by a touchdown too. So we'll go Philadelphia to win there, but looking forward to all of these games this week. My favorite game this week is probably Green Bay versus Tampa Bay. What would yours be?
I like Bills and Cowboys. That's going to be an interesting game because I think the Bills have to win this game. If they lose it, I think they're out of the race. The Cowboys, they win this game, further cements them as a top 5 team. They lose this game, they're still in the playoff race, but I think this it would put the Bills in a much better position than some of these other teams in the AFC race.
Yeah, and I think there'll be a lot of tests this week with that game and then with Baltimore and Jacksonville, but looking forward to recapping all of the action next Tuesday.
Absolutely. We'll see you guys next week.